Thank you so much, Sibel. So we're hearing a lot about, red flags, right? About the technology and how it could be misused. So now we move next with Ms. Roaa Al-Feel on data science for social impact and media analysis. Roaa holds a master's of MS from AUB here. So by the way, the 30% of women in data science number that I quoted for AUB, we're doing much better. So in some of our online programs, we're doing 45% women, and some of our residential, regular computer science, engineering degrees, we're up to 50%. So hopefully we can even increase this better. So Roaa is a data scientist and currently works at UNESCO. Her work focuses on leveraging traditional and non-traditional data sources for targeted decision-making. In her presentation, we're going to explore the convergence of data science, machine learning, and societal welfare through a use case, and specifically it's centered around the Syrian conflict. So let's try to hear from Roaa how, through the innovative application of data science and machine learning techniques, we can identify and combat fake news during war. Roaa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Mariette, for the introduction. Hello, everyone, and good morning. In this presentation, I'll be sharing some of my work that I've done from my master's in computer science at AUB and from my work with NGOs and the United Nations, specifically for data science for social impact, policy development, and media analysis. Data science is not just about numbers and algorithms. It's a powerful tool that we can use to derive positive change in society. Examples can include social impact, so we can use data science to analyze the current situations of the population and their social issues and pressing social issues. This includes poverty, inequality, healthcare, and education. Data science can also be used for policy development, so it allows policymakers to analyze the policies that they've made, how they affect the population, how they can properly allocate resources, and evaluate the outcomes for the policies. And finally, we will take a look on media analysis. So media content such as news, specifically in the Syrian war, and public discourse using Twitter social media analysis. So first, we will take a look on social impact through data science. Data science empowers organizations to tackle pressing social challenges by leveraging insights from data analysis. This can be done on 3 steps. So we identify social issues, what pressing social issues take place in the area that we're focused on. So next, we will take a look on Syrian refugees in Lebanon. So data science enables us to identify and prioritize the issues by analyzing the data sources, whether using big data and publicly available data or data that is collected using statistical methods. After identifying the social issues and the most important issues to be tackled, we go ahead and do targeted intervention. So this can also be done by leveraging data-driven insights. So organizations such as the UN for refugees, they can design and implement targeted interventions that address the specific social challenges that were identified when we were doing the identification step. And lastly, after doing the intervention, we can measure the impact for the intervention that was made, and then we can reassess the situation and redo the cycle. So the first example that we're going to look at is a project that is a collaboration between multiple UN organizations and the Statistical Center and Administration in Lebanon. So the project is called Big Data for Good. Can big data illustrate the challenges facing Syrian refugees in Lebanon? So as we know, there's a huge number of Syrian refugees in Lebanon, and they always go through issues. There's a recent issues that's been going on. So it's important to properly collect timely data and near real-time data that allows us to analyze their conditions, whether they're being kicked out of certain cities, whether there's conflict surrounding them. So this project focused on using call detail records, so the phone calls that happened between Syrian refugees or from Syrian refugees' lines. Obviously, we don't take a look at the content of the phone calls. It is just about the records, the number of calls that happened, and they're all completely anonymous, so, and definitely aggregated. So we don't know individually who performed the call. We aggregate the calls to a district level, and based on the activity of the phone calls, how many phone calls happened during this month, before a conflict or after a conflict, allows us to analyze how the refugees have been settling or resettling in Lebanon. So this project happened by first starting with the data collection. So we gathered the call detail records and aggregated it on a district level, and then we extracted target variables that we want the call detail records to predict. So socioeconomic indicators such as employment, incidents, gender, demographics, age, population distribution, whether they're centered in a district that's closer to the Syrian border or more into the Beirut area, and so on. And then we made use of the call detail records to perform prediction on these extracted variables. So can the phone, the variation of the phone activity allow us to predict the socioeconomic indicators of interest? So that was achieved by calculating the Pearson correlation between the call detail records aggregations that were found and conducting multivariate linear regression and feature selection to identify which aggregations allow us to properly predict employment, incidents, and so on. And the results of this project was that we were able to create proxies for socioeconomic and demographic indicators. We were able to establish relationships between non-traditional data sources, such as the call detail records and ground truth indicators that were collected by the UN organizations that are specialized for refugees. And we ended up testing the correlations and the predictive power against statistical data. So this project specifically was a pilot project to understand or to prove that we can use non-traditional data sources to analyze the conditions of the Syrian refugees. The next project I will be talking about is data science and policy development. So a little bit of an introduction about that before the project. So data science plays a pivotal role in shaping effective public policies by informing decision makers on how to optimize resource allocations and to evaluate the outcomes of the policies that they have made. So it starts with informed decision making. So when we use big data and data-driven insights, we enable policymakers to make evidence-based decisions and to ensure the policies actually target what the population needs in this time. And then we optimize resource allocation. So after we perform the proper decision making and decide what needs to be done, we analyze the big data sets so that policymakers can identify what needs to be done specifically and to maximize the impact of the public spending. And then eventually, after performing and coming out with a policy and applying the policy, data science facilitates the continuous evaluation of policy outcomes, allowing policymakers to assess the effectiveness of their intervention. So the project that we will take a look on this specific topic is leveraging big data sources for policy evaluation and analysis in Jordan and Lebanon. So this project was also a collaboration between multiple organizations, NGOs, the UN, and the Central Administration of Statistics in Lebanon, and the same Department of Statistics in Jordan. So this project made use of multiple big data sources and non-traditional sources to assess policy impact in crisis settings. Examples of data sources included Twitter, social media analysis, Google search trends, Facebook and Google mobility data, nighttime light satellite imagery, and website analytics. And for this project, we selected policies that we were interested in analyzing for each country, and then based on the specific situation of the policy, we decide which data sources we look at. And the results in this project was that we were able to analyze big data's role in analyzing policies during crisis specifically, and we were able to identify insights and recommendations for these policies using big data. And then eventually we created a big data for public policy platform, which allowed policymakers to take a look at this big data being scraped in real time and analyzed in real time for them to properly assess and address complex crises. And lastly, we're going to take a look at data science in media analysis. So data science allows us to analyze both news and social media and provide context into media content and shaping public discourse through advanced analytical techniques. So we can take a look at understanding the media content, so news from reliable sources, as we saw in previous presentations for detection of fake news. So data science enables the analysis of vast amounts of media content, including text, images, and videos to uncover trends, patterns, and themes, and shaping public discourse by analyzing social media content. Data science allows us to understand the public opinion about the prevalent narratives, framing issues, and shaping opinions. So the first example we're going to take a look at is actually for the social media analysis. So this is another project that we worked on at the United Nations for Twitter sentiment analysis for Sustainable Development Goals, or what we call SDGs, for progress in the Arab region. So this is a platform that we created that scrapes Twitter regularly for how the population talks about the progress of every country from the Arab region. Is it doing proper progress or negative progress in SDG goals, such as environmental goals or ending poverty and hunger and so on. So the methodology for this project was that we used Twitter as a platform to collect public sentiment on SDGs across the Arab region, and then cron jobs were created to regularly scrape Twitter for every country, for every topic, for keywords related to the SDGs and the policies associated with the SDGs. And then we performed automated analysis focused on understanding emerging trends and concerns through sentiment analysis, and extracting the main keywords that the people were using when talking about these SDGs. And the results was that we created a platform that allows users, that is publicly available and allows users to see the most used words visualized through word clouds, the sentiment analysis and how it varies. So has it been positive around a certain time when a policy was coming out, or was it negative when the policy came out? And the word clouds of what exactly people were talking about when talking about these specific topics, and the sentiment analysis was provided in bars and line graphs that were easily readable by the users. And the last case study that we're going to look at is the detection of fake news in the Syrian war. So this project was actually my thesis when I was a student here at AUB. So the idea of this project was to collect news sources from news articles from credible sources that were focused on reporting on the Syrian war, whether they were national in Syria or regional, so websites like Al Jazeera and so on, or international, like websites like Reuters and CNN and so on. So we collected data sources from reliable sources, and then we created the data set that was unlabeled, so we didn't know whether every article is true or fake, but we performed crowdsourcing to extract information from this data, and then we performed clustering analysis to group the articles into fake and true. And then after clustering the articles into fake and credible categories, we performed feature extractions to extract natural language processing features such as emotional language, sectarian language, mentioning sources, mentioning who performed the act, how many women were killed, how many children were killed, whether they were trying to play on the emotional factor of more women and children were killed, whether they were actually killed, whether it was talking about civilians being bombed or non-civilians being targeted. So all of these features were extracted from the articles, and then we created multiple machine learning models, and we experimented with all of them until we found the best performing model that performs out of sample the best. And then we created a feature extraction that allows us to extract features from articles that are not in sample and not specifically related to the Syrian war, and ended up having a model that can read articles from outside the Syrian war and was able to perform and achieve a high accuracy in detecting fake news outside of the Syrian war, even though it was trained on the Syrian war, but it was able to perform well in other contexts. So finally, so conclusions and key takeaways from my talk before I sum up. So data science is not just about numbers and algorithms. It's a powerful tool for deriving positive change in society. We took a look at data science for social impact and how we can use it to perform targeted interventions and measure impact for positive change. Specifically in the examples that I used, it was for Syrian refugees, for policy development and how we were able in Lebanon and Jordan to perform evidence-based policy making and optimize resource allocations and then perform analysis on the policies that were made, and media analysis and how we were able to detect fake news in the Syrian war and outside of the Syrian war, and to perform social media analysis and to understand public discourse. And we took a look at these case studies and real-world applications, highlighting the effectiveness of the data-driven approach. And that's it from my side. Thank you, everyone, for listening.